Okay, so picking up from where we left off, we are still talking about this part, okay, how the tensions within Korea become part of the Cold War. So we mentioned about the partition of Korea, the formation of the two Koreas, and now we are moving on to attempts to achieve unification by South and North Korean leaders. So both Syngman Rhee and Kim Il Sung, I mentioned just now, they want to reunify Korea under their own rule. That means to say, for Kim Il Sung, it'll be under communist rule, obviously, and Syngman Rhee under democratic rule. So for Syngman Rhee, he requested for help from the USA, and because he behaved like an authoritarian, very similar to Stalin, and USA therefore did not want to actually give him enough resources. Also, the second point down here, World War II ended not long ago, and if Rhee is asking for military help, USA would be actually quite reluctant to start another war so soon. Okay? So for Kim Il Sung, however, he requested for help from Soviet Union, and Stalin said, okay, I will help you. But Stalin didn't want to have any direct involvement in Korea because he did not want to be entangled in a very obvious war against the USA. And so therefore, right, there was actually no possibility of a peaceful reunification because both leaders actually wanted to reunify according to their own rules. Okay. Now we will look at more of USA and USSR's involvement in the next part, which we will be talking about whether Korean War was more of a civil war or a proxy war. Okay, but now we need to go into the details of the importance of Korea in the context of the Cold War. Okay, we'll be looking at these few points here. Okay, the significance of Korea to the Soviet Union and the Communist bloc, impact of developments in the Soviet Union and China on American foreign policy, and finally, military and strategic imbalance between North and South Korea. Now, the significance of Korea to the Soviet Union and the Communist bloc is that this will be a platform for them to actually spread communism if they wish to do so. At that point in time, if you remember, only the eastern side of Soviet Union is actually communist countries, but the western side, that will be actually the Southeast area. So coming back to this particular region, we know that China is actually already communist, but there is still, Korea down here, which can potentially be a communist country as well. And if they can get this to become communist, they can actually continue to spread further southwards towards the Southeast Asia region. And they also want to counterbalance American influence in Japan because USA occupied Japan after the surrender of Japan. Not exactly occupied like a colony occupied, but they were in quite a bit of control. And I mentioned in the previous lecture that they also have military stationed in Japan, which was a big deal. And there were other events that also made Korea significant to Soviet Union and the Communist bloc, and these are the three events that we are going to be looking at now. Now the first one is that they managed to actually, the Soviet Union actually managed to invent their own atomic bomb. Yeah, according to the picture, that's not a tree, that is a nuclear explosion that causes the mushroom cloud. Looks like a mushroom, huh? Now, Soviet Union, they managed to invent the nuclear bomb or atomic bomb or whatever you want to call it in August 1949, which means to say now they can actually compete with the USA and they can provide support to North Korea without the possibility of American threatening them back. So therefore, in other words, from this point in time onwards, they have achieved the similar nuclear capability as the Americans. Now, why is this important? Because in the context of the Cold War, right, the nuclear bombs are actually very important. So they happen to, if you remember in chapter 1, actually in the textbook, they did mention something about the arms race, nuclear arms race. Now, the importance of this is that when USA is able to build 10 nuclear weapons, for Soviet Union they will reply and build like 20, and then USA sees that they build 20, I'll build like 100, and it goes on, and there will be no end to competing who has more nuclear weapons and who has more advanced nuclear weapons. Okay, we'll be looking at the nuclear weapons bits, I think, in Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay, where we look at the nuclear weapon crisis itself. So when they did manage to explode the atomic bomb, this is very significant for the Soviet Union because the importance of this is that they can now do whatever they want without being afraid of the USA in terms of military capability wise. See, now imagine if Soviet Union didn't have the atomic bomb and they want to intervene in Korea, USA just simply have to tell them, hey, go away or I will use the atomic bomb on you. And they definitely have to back away. So you see the importance of this actually when they invent the atomic bomb, it is actually quite significant for the Soviet Union. The communist victory in China. You just remember this term, China is mine, 1949. It tells you of the year that China became communist. When I say China is mine, I'm speaking from the point of view of this gentleman down here, that's Mao Zedong. Okay, so Mao Zedong managed to establish communism in China in 1949, and a communist China meant that there was now an ally for Soviet Union in Asia. They would be more favorable to actually intervene in Korea now, because they know that if anything does not go well for them, they still can get China, which is a supremely big country, to help in Korea's affairs. Okay, and so because after China became communist, they actually formed an alliance that's called the Sino-Soviet Alliance. Sino referring to China. Okay, anything that's mentioned Sino, okay, like the Sino-Japanese War is the war between China and Japan. So the Sino-Soviet Alliance is, well, obviously between China and Soviet Union. And China and Soviet Union actually signed this treaty in February 1950. So therefore, this alliance means that for China, they would assist North Korea without fear of being attacked by anybody else, for example, USA. And Soviet Union could also avoid direct intervention and involvement in North Korea. Um, the reason why they want to avoid this is again for their own protection. So they basically can send China there and say, okay, look, you deal with North Korea. We back out. We don't want to fight with the USA and antagonize them in any possible way. Okay, now, so why did the USA actually change their attitude towards Korea? Now, so for Soviet Union, right, before that they were actually not very interested in Korea. Then only after the atomic bomb, after the communist victory, with the Sino-Soviet alliance, they decided to increase their involvement in Korea more. We'll be looking at most of the SBQ practices, and you'll be seeing a lot of interaction between Stalin and Kim Il-sung, and like usually it's like Kim Il-sung asking for, hey Stalin, help me out and I need this, I need that, and you know Stalin's reply towards that, you will see that it's rather evasive, and they will try to push the responsibility to China to be more involved in Korea. USA also originally were not involved in Korea that much because they were not important to them. Japan was the important one to them. Taiwan, Philippines were important to them strategically. And why they make a change in their attitude is because of the atomic bomb and communist China. Okay, so in April of 1950, the policy of containment was meant to be global. Previously, the policy of containment, right, it was restricted to within Europe, containing communism in Europe. So if you remember from chapter 1, they wanted to contain communism in Europe with the Marshall Plan, which was meant for European countries, as well as the Truman Doctrine, which was meant to help Greece and Turkey, which are actually part of Europe. So now the containment policy actually spreads throughout to the rest of the world and saying that, hey, as long as your country is under the threat of communism, we will come and help you. And this policy of containment is actually applied to actually most democratic countries. And actually, if you study more of Singapore's history, you will know that we actually make use of this as well. Of course, not with assistance from USA. And I'm going to stop here. I'll get into trouble or something. Okay, so the military and strategic imbalance between North and South Korea. For North Korea, they actually have support from the Soviet Union and China, and Kim Il-sung was actually prepared to invade South Korea if need be. And for USA, they actually only supported them very lightly, if you remember, because of Syngman Rhee's leadership, and they did not trust him, and they didn't want to provide him with enough weapons. And so, if North Korea is to invade South Korea, right, actually, they sure are going to lose. Okay, so if you look back again at the question just now, this concludes the first part of it. Sorry, how the tensions within Korea become part of the Cold War. You would actually need to look at the various factors and try to formulate some kind of answer for that. There are quite a few pointers down here, but you cannot just take them as it is. Like, for example, you cannot just say, okay, the formation of the two Koreas contributed to tensions which became part of the Cold War. That wouldn't be exactly a good way to phrase it. So now the challenge for the subsequent chapters for this is that for any kind of 8-mark questions, you need to know how to actually make use of the information that we have done here in order to fit them to answer the question. Okay? And these are the few things that we have actually went through. Okay, before I end this part, maybe I'll just show you another interesting thing. Okay, this happened last year. North Korea elections, Kim Jong-un wins 100% of the vote. This was extremely ridiculous. They actually do hold their own elections, and you have actually one choice. Okay, and you look at the news reported, everybody voted, which is actually quite impossible. Even in our democratic country, you won't see everybody voting for when the elections come around. Okay, so they're saying that everybody voted, and and since there's only one choice, it's very ridiculous. Now this is really just for the report says that powerful tool for them to check out the movement and potential dissidents of the population, but I don't see how that actually works, because I cannot actually choose something else to show that I am dissenting against the government. So it's really quite ridiculous down here. Some pictures from the poll. Okay, people going to vote for it. Kim Jong-un voting for himself. People being very happy, and dressing in traditional Korean uniform, and enjoying performances as they are going to vote. Look at this woman's face, like, I should be clapping for this, but I'm not very happy. I just voted for Kim Jong-un, that kind of face. Okay, so that is basically North Korea's election. It happened last year, 2014. Okay, so we're done with this part. Please move on to the next lecture for the second part of this particular chapter.